Have you ever wondered what Amsterdam is all about? Don't just read about the culture that has accepted cannabis. Experience it firsthand with CS Travel's Sensible Amsterdam Tour with NORML. Travel to one of Europe's most beautiful cities this January for an educational and recreational visit to a city that regulates cannabis like alcohol. CS Travel has arranged an exclusive visit for reform-minded Americans that includes a private tour of some of Amsterdam's most renowned coffee shops, educational seminars with coffee shop proprietors, local law enforcement, members of the Cannabis Retailers Association, and NORML staff. Entertainment includes a special evening at the Boom Chicago Comedy Club, canal tours, visits to the city's many museums, including the world-famous Van Gogh Museum. Don't just wonder about Amsterdam, experience the beauty and freedom of this unique city firsthand with CS Travel and NORML's Sensible Amsterdam Tour. Pricing information is available online at coffeeshoptravel.com. That's coffeeshoptravel.com. Or call toll-free at 800-816-1846. That's 800-816-1846. Be a sensible American. Visit Amsterdam with CS Travel and NORML this January. Call 1-800-816-1846 right now to book your trip. More information is available at norml.org. And distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. This is your daily audio stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular audio podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, normalaudiostash.com. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. Welcome back here to NORML's Daily Audio Stash. Today, it is Friday, November 9th. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Take a moment to join us here at NORML. Just visit norml.org to make your donation or join NORML today. I want to thank everyone out at the Pennsylvania College of Technology for coming out for a lecture I gave last night on marijuana and legalization. It really was a great turnout, a warm reception on a very chilly fall evening there in Northeast Pennsylvania. A big special thanks go out to Ben and Eric and their faculty advisor, Elliot, who helped pull together the event. Thanks to everyone who was there. It really was a great interactive event, and I really had a good time doing it. We'll have some audio from that presentation next week here in the Audio Stash, and today, a great show for you here today. We're going to speak with Steve Bloom in our regular Friday CelebStoner.com update. Steve's going to talk a bit about marijuana news this week. The Department of Justice has an interesting report out, and folks, the price of marijuana, especially good marijuana, is, at least in the opinion of the Department of Justice, is due to go down in 2008. Well, because there's so much wonderfully cultivated, finely grown marijuana in this country right now. So, because there's so much marijuana out there, the Department of Justice is hinting at a price drop, especially in high-grade marijuana out there. More on that in just a moment with Steve Bloom in our CelebStoner.com update. Also today in the program, we've got some very cool NORML 2007 conference audio. This was a panel that I actually sat on. You're going to hear my portion of it next week here on the program. But today, we're going to hear Radical Russ Belville. He is a member of the Oregon NORML Board of Directors And he's also a radio host. We're going to hear some clips from his show and his presentation. Also in the program today, we'll hear Brian and Laura Judy. They're the webmasters of NORML.org. They run the company Red Aphid Interactive Media. They make some wonderful Flash animations and do some incredible graphic design, both 3D and 2D. They made the game for Students for Sensible Drug Policy, the Bong Hits for Jesus video game. Cool stuff. You can find at ssdp.org. So that'll be in the program today. Radical Russ Belleville and Brian and Laura Judy of NORML.org. And they're going to talk about our Second Life office meeting. Got some cool photos from that right up on our website today at normalaudiostash.com. Also in the program today, we'll have some great music for you as well from podshow.com. So a very good Friday program. A great weekend stash guaranteed to last all weekend. Your free stash. NORML's Daily Audio Stash. Let's get right into our show today with our celebstoner.com update.
I want to be famous. I want to wear minks and satins and pearls.
Steve Bloom is the man with his finger on the pulse of celebrity stoners around the planet. You can read about it all and marijuana news up on the website, celebstoner.com. Steve, welcome back to the show today.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing very well. Had a wonderful experience there at the Pennsylvania College of Technology last night. And topping off the marijuana news at celebstoner.com today, indoor cultivation and potency on the rise, according to the Department of Justice National Drug Threat Assessment. And there were a few surprising and rather frank findings in there.
Well, I went through that, and interestingly, I haven't seen any coverage of this anywhere in the media. Nobody has picked up on this report yet, apparently. It's the Drug Threat Assessment Report 2008, so it's looking ahead to next year, and it's looking back really on 2006. And there's sections in the report, and you can go to my site and, you could download the PDF if you want to look through all the different categories of drugs. Obviously, my focus here is on marijuana. And I thought it was very interesting as I read through it because pretty much they have what they call strategic findings. And two are very significant, I think, to marijuana smokers and growers, and just in general, anybody who is interested in the subject. Indoor cannabis cultivation is increasing in some areas of the country as growers attempt to avoid outdoor eradication and attain higher profits through production of indoor-grown, high-potency marijuana. Well, that's not big news to perhaps you and me who know that, indoor growing is a booming business in America, but coming from the government's point of view, it's, obviously they're going to be focusing more and more on that. They seem to have, they believe, a little bit of a handle on outdoor growing because they can, patrol with helicopters and swoop down and, grab plots that are all over the place, especially out west. They've, out in California alone, they confiscated over 2 million plants this summer. But what's interesting is the way the writing of this, the federal, state, and local law enforcement's reporting indicates that vigorous outdoor cannabis eradication efforts have caused many marijuana producers, particularly Caucasian groups, to relocate indoors, even in leading outdoor grow states such as California and Tennessee. In addition to the reduced risk of detection, indoor cannabis cultivators benefit from higher profits because cultivation is a year-round process with 4 to 6 harvests per year and controlled conditions that enable growers to produce high-quality marijuana that commands higher prices in most drug markets. These factors have contributed to a sharp increase in indoor cultivation, reported by law enforcement. Now, their second finding, and this is one that the government always likes to make a big deal out of, is that there is increased potency. But actually, this report doesn't editorialize. It doesn't say that's a bad thing. It just says this is what it is. And to be honest, it's true. Everybody knows that marijuana potency has increased because of all the indoor and outdoor growing domestically in America, taking a bigger chunk of the marijuana that's available in the U.S. compared to in the past when there was so much imported marijuana coming from Mexico and other countries that were lower grade and lower potency. So marijuana potency reached the highest recorded level in 2006, most likely attributable to improvements in cultivation, outdoor and indoor cultivation methods. And this is based on the University of Mississippi Potency Monitoring Project data for 2006 that indicates the average THC level in tested samples of marijuana increased to the highest ever recorded level since the project's inception in 1975. According to project data, the average THC content in all tested marijuana samples nationwide increased to 8.77% in 2006 nearly doubling since 1996, which was 4.5. Most of the marijuana available in the United States is lower potency commercial-grade marijuana produced in Mexico. However, the national average potency of marijuana appears to be increasing because of the rising prevalence in domestic drug markets of high-potency marijuana that is generally produced in Canada and the United States through improved and highly efficient indoor and outdoor cultivation methods. Independent growers operating in Canada and the United States use advanced equipment and cultivation methods to produce a higher potency crop, including using clone starter plants and high-nutrient fertilizers. For example, indoor grow operations recently discovered in the Atlanta area yielded marijuana with a THC content of 18%. Now, that's the type of THC content you'll see in marijuana grown over in Amsterdam, where you can find out what the THC percentages are. Usually we don't know what it is here, but over there they test it and they'll tell you. And in the past, the marijuana, this is, again, confiscated marijuana, but it's what they're getting and what they're testing. And so they used to generally only confiscate imported marijuana with very low THC. Now they're confiscating more, domestic marijuana with higher THC, so those numbers are going up. And then finally, in the section Predictive Estimates, the report concludes, increased cannabis cultivation may result in reduced marijuana prices. The recent increases in cannabis cultivation and marijuana production within the United States coincide with the continued flow of marijuana from foreign sources, which may lead to market saturation in major markets. This saturation could reduce the price of the drug significantly. So essentially it's saying, hey, there's too much weed out there, and the price might go down. Now, that's a prediction that would be wonderful for buyers, that marijuana, which has kind of peaked at maybe a $600 an ounce price for the best. I mean, you could probably pay a little bit more if you're buying in small quantities, but that price is, it's sort of like been hovering in that area for the last few years. It'd be nice to see the price come down. That would be by the mere fact that there's more being grown, so there's more supply to satisfy, the ever-growing demand. So I thought it was interesting. This report is not, biased. It's just kind of what's out there. They're not saying, oh, potency is bad. They're just saying, hey, this is what it is. And then, and the government will probably seize upon this, the Department of Justice, and say, you see, marijuana is now more potent, and therefore it's more harmful. Of course, we know that's not true. Because marijuana is more potent doesn't make it more harmful, it just makes it better. And in a lot of ways, better for you because you smoke less. But, this will be how the government will probably spin this. But I thought it was very interesting that they're acknowledging what we probably all know, that there's a boom in marijuana cultivation, and that it's pushed indoors because of all the methods of arresting people for growing outdoors, and so there's just more and more indoor growing and an increase of potency due to that.
Well, the price may be going down because so much good quality marijuana is being grown right now. It kind of reiterates that marijuana culture today is going through a somewhat of a golden age, even as prohibition continues. Also, Steve, there's a story you have up today that relates to presidential candidate Fred Thompson. Who is this gentleman, Philip Martin, that you have a mugshot of posted today?
Well, interestingly, I mean, Fred Thompson, the Republican presidential candidate, a report came out in the Washington Post on Sunday that he has been using private planes or jet provided by Philip Martin, who is a advisor and fundraiser. And they blew the lid off of that because basically Martin is an he's actually not an ex-con. He has been arrested in the past for drug sales and other charges. He never went to jail. In 1979, Martin pleaded guilty to selling 11 pounds of pot to narcs in Tampa, Florida. That was worth about $3,500 at the time, so it was probably low-grade marijuana, but nevertheless 11 pounds. 4 years later, he violated his parole and was charged with cocaine trafficking, bookmaking, and conspiracy. Now, if initially, Washington Post breaks a story and Thompson just claims, hey, I didn't know anything about this. You didn't do any kind of background check. Here's a guy, Martin, who's a very well-off guy, and, he's supporting the campaign by helping out by allowing, Thompson to use his private jet to travel around. Thompson claims that he's reimbursed for that, but I don't know if that's really true. And then it took only about a day for him to realize, hey, this guy, I have to sort of disassociate, although actually Martin was the one who resigned. It's pretty clear that, Thompson must have said, hey, listen, you got to step away because, this is causing me a major problem. Thompson, when he claimed ignorance, says, I know Phil is a good man. He is my friend. He's going to remain my friend. He didn't go to jail. He got probation. He's paid his debt to society and turned himself around to become a good, productive, successful citizen. I'm not going to throw my friend under the bus for something he did, 25 years ago if he's okay now. Again, something he did in the 70s is okay now. But nevertheless, here's a very conservative candidate who I'm sure you would like to, see, drug dealers rot in jail, and is not going to offer, any opportunity for him to get out anytime soon if he becomes president. Yet he's taking money from a guy who's exactly that kind of person who may have turned his life around, but hey, this is what he did then. It's not me to judge that that's a bad thing that he was selling pot. I don't care. But it's just the contradiction of a conservative candidate having somebody like that on his side and then not pleading that he doesn't know about it and then kind of saying, well, it's really okay anyway, isn't it? Meanwhile, Martin's done pretty well for himself. He lives on an island in the Gulf of Mexico off of Alabama in a house that's worth $2.4 million. So the guy's done very well doing whatever he's done in life over the years, in legitimate business. But, back in the 70s, he was doing illegitimate business, and he got caught on it, and now he's no longer, involved with Thompson's campaign.
Well, Steve, this has been a great conversation as always. Many thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Many thanks again, Steve. Steve Bloom is the editor of CelebStoner.com. He has his finger on the pulse of celebrity stoners around the planet. You can read all the celebrity news and marijuana news that Steve tracks down right up there at CelebStoner.com. We have links to it right up on our website at NORMLAudiostash.com. And Steve joins us each Friday right here on the program. Stay tuned. We've got more Normal Conference audio coming up and some music here today for our Friday stash.
You're listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
And coming up next today, we're going to have some NORML 2007 conference audio. This is from the Activist Toolbox panel. It was chaired by NORML's outreach coordinator, Ron Fisher, and it included a number of folks, including myself. We'll hear some more of the folks on this panel, including Chris Crane and Doug McVeigh, and my own panel presentation next week here on the Audio Stash. But today, we're going to hear Radical Russ Belville. Russ is on the board of Oregon NORML. He is also a radio personality. We're going to hear some clips from his show, and he gives a great presentation. Also today, we're going to hear from Brian and Laura Judy of Red Aphid Interactive Media. They are essentially the webmasters for NORML.org. They create all the great Flash animations. They are instrumental in getting this podcast posted each day. They created the Flash player for the podcast that's on the High Times and Cottonmouth King's MySpace pages. They also created the video game for Students for Sensible Drug Policy, Bong Hits for Jesus, the video game. So we'll hear their presentation today here in the Activist Toolbox panel. So we'll hear their presentation here today as well in our Activist Toolbox panel. That's coming up right now.
Live and direct from the City of Roses in the free speech zone we call America, the place where true patriots fight for progressive change. It's the Russ Belville Show. What did he say? What did he say?
I think every citizen's not worried about Osama bin Laden. It's kind of one of
Sorry, you get used to having a theme song before you talk, and it just becomes a habit after a while. Hi, my name is Russ Belville. I'm the Associate Director of Oregon NORML. I'm also the webmaster and a guy who never met a microphone he didn't like. So that's what got me here. The title of my presentation today has to do with pop pride and embracing pop pride in our activism. And, one of the things that I think about, and Alan St. Pierre makes this point a lot about how there's been the four major social movements in our country. We've had the movement to free black people and for black people to get their civil rights, and minorities included. We've had the movements for women to get their civil rights and their voting rights. We've had the gay rights movement, and now we've got the marijuana rights movement. And there's some important distinctions about these movements. We could classify these four movements into two different movements based on the fact of whether or not they're obvious movements. If you're black or you're female, it's not something you can hide. It's something that's going to be pretty obvious. And so there's a certain dynamic at work with those movements. With the gay rights movement and the marijuana movement, we've got a situation where it is something that you can hide, that you can be in the closet and no one knows who you are. Now, with respect to those two movements, the gay rights movement and the marijuana movement, then we can separate those into two movements. One movement that's a movement of birth or heritage, another movement that's a movement of choice. The gay rights movement is a movement of people who are born a certain way, and they want to have their civil rights, and they deserve to have their civil rights, of course. But our movement is a very unique movement in that we choose who we are, and we choose to be people that consume cannabis. This is what creates some of the problems that we have in our activism, in that I've always said that the people that are against marijuana aren't necessarily against marijuana. They're voting against the summer of love. They're voting against the hippies in the backyard. They're voting against long hair and dreadlocks and tie-dyes and all of the accoutrement of the cannabis movement. And so one of the things that I always point out to people, and one of the things I always try to encourage young activists as much as possible, given their situation, is to come out of the closet, is to just admit to the people around you what it is you believe in and what it is you stand for. And in this audience, we're going to have plenty of people that are that way, but so many of our friends and family can't stand out, and they can't, put their face out in front to let everyone know that they're a marijuana consumer. But all the gains that we see most recently in the gay rights movement have only come because of people in the gay rights movement coming out and standing up for their rights and demanding that they get a seat at the table. I often have this strange science fiction thought in my head. I imagine what it would be like if secret government scientists in Area 51 put together a special compound that would make marijuana not get you high, but it goes wrong somehow, and it alters our pigment and our DNA so that all of our skin turns a sheen of green. Now, if every person who'd ever smoked marijuana had green skin, do you think we'd have the problems that we have today? Would we be as discriminated against as we are today? We'd have the green rights movement, right? We'd have green power, right? So that's what I want to see from more people in the movement, is more standing up and out front. And it's more than just being passively out, of just saying, if someone asks you, well, yeah, I smoke weed every now and then. It's being actively out, of seeking out the opportunities to be out. Going back to this whole green rights movement, if we're talking about people that have green skin, for example, when the media does a story about, say, a civil rights march, or recently, Gina 6, we had the situation down in Louisiana with the nooses in the tree, and all the people come out to march for that. When these people come out to march for those issues, they stand up, and proclaim, and they won't let the media characterize them in a negative sense. See, the media wouldn't dare come out against a black rights march and say they were all shuffling down the street, right? But they'll cover our marijuana marches and say they were groggily gathered for their march. Or it's always a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I mean? It's always treating us badly. And I have written so many letters to the editor calling the media out on these tactics, of saying, you wouldn't say that about, the disabled community. You wouldn't use those slurs against the Jewish community. Why do you feel compelled to use those slurs against the cannabis community? It's actively coming out and pointing out the media's biases in these situations. And speaking about the media bias in this situation, part of what got me here is I got into a contest sponsored by the Center for American Progress. It's the search for the next great talk radio star, Progressive Talk. And I won this national contest, and I got my Progressive Talk radio show, and I was so excited because Ed Schultz was there. He was one of the judges who judged on the show, and I was so excited because, great, we got, more voices that are pro-cannabis and more voices that are anti-drug war on our mainstream media. I can count Bill Maher and maybe 2 or 3 other people that are active in this in the mainstream media that are speaking out against it. And I'm thinking, great, I'll finally have this chance with the progressives behind me. We'll have the progressive think tank. We can get the message out. What was one of the first things they told me in telling me about being a progressive talk radio host? Stay away from the 4 Gs. Now, the 4 Gs are God, guns, gays, and grass. They specifically told me that. Stay away from those topics. They're heated, emotional topics. Everybody's made their mind up on them, and no one wants to discuss them. I don't know what cocktail parties you're attending inside the Beltway, but when I go to parties and talk to people, they want to talk about God, guns, gays, and grass. That's a lot about the grass, come to think of it. But, that was one of the first things I got with this was, to be careful and not be considered the drug guy. Don't be the drug guy. That somehow would dilute my message. And after speaking to him, and I'd tell him, this war on drugs, it decimates 90% of our Bill of Rights. Your 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. The only one that hasn't really impacted is quartering British soldiers in our homes, the Third Amendment. So far, that hasn't been a problem from the drug war. But I wanted to play a couple of clips here. These are some clips when I attended this contest. This is in Washington, D.C. It was carried on C-SPAN. I'm at the Center for American Progress, where all these high-level, John Podesta, who is Clinton's former chief of staff, is in charge of that think tank. And I had 3 segments to do on this national show. And my thought was, Well, I'm going to talk about what I believe in, and if I win or lose on that, fine, but I'm not giving up the opportunity to have a national stage and not say something. So I did this little comic intro where I talked about, and it was about this time last year when the FBI's Uniform Crime Report came out, and at that point had the 785,000 people arrested for marijuana crimes, and that was the latest record. So I started off with this little clip here. Of course, this message from President Bush I thought was very important.
I made it very clear, to the President, that I recognize the United States has a responsibility in the fight against drugs. And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
So I thought I could get behind that. I'll use less drugs, Mr. President. Let's put the cocaine away and put away the double-barrel bong. We're just doing joints tonight. We're going to use less drugs. Yeah, I don't understand that. But we did this part on the war on drugs, and I kind of had these little comments to say.
I'm Radical Russ Belvo, reminding you that I am not some pot-smoking, latte-drinking, sushi-eating, New York Times-reading, Hollywood-loving, Volvo-driving liberal with a French last name. I drive a Jeep.
So, I try to engage these people with comedy a little bit to draw them in because they've already got that kind of idea that it's the Cheech and Chong and it's all funny, ha-ha. So I try to draw them in with that. But the rest of the segment was me on full-on what I call Alan St. Pierre mode, knocking down all of the statistics, and 89% of them are for possession only, and 50,000 people are in jail just for drugs, and blah, blah, blah. I went through the whole thing, all these statistics that I went through about the war on drugs. And at the end of it, now one of the judges is Ed Schultz, who's the #1 progressive talk radio star in the country. He's got audience up there. He's getting toward the Hannity levels now. He's starting to get really big talk radio audience. This was his response, and again, it just kills me to think that this is our side. This is the progressive side. These are the liberals at the liberal think tank and the progressive talk radio stars, and this was Ed Schultz's reaction to that. Let me find that clip here.
Then there was the fringe story of marijuana. But you did give good information in your final segment about the drug war and the numbers, and you gave us a reason.
And the thing that always caught me about that comment is when he said it's the fringe story of marijuana. The fringe story. And I'm looking around that room, and I'd spoken to some of those people during the weekend and had dinner with them, and at least a third of the people that were looking at me in that room were part of that fringe. Okay? And based on the statistics of 90 million people having used once in their life and the past 4 presidential candidates from the major parties having used at least once in their life, I'm thinking we're a pretty big fringe. This is a pretty big fringe. And why aren't we getting treated that? I expect it from Fox News. I expect Fox News to ignore us. I don't expect the liberal organizations to ignore us. With maybe the exception of the ACLU and the drug policy organizations, we need to get our faces in the mainstream media and show them that we're just normal people. And that just ties it back to my concept of coming out to your friends and your family and on the media, writing your letters to the editor to let them know that we are just normal people like everyone else. They're afraid of the stereotypes. They're afraid of all of the movies and all of the misinformation that's been out there about marijuana. The more people they see out there that are just their PTA soccer moms and that they're the NASCAR dads, the more that they see that we're just normal, the more we win. So the more you can do, and there's community radio out there. Chris mentioned all the podcasting. You should definitely get involved in podcasting. Community radio is out there. We, with Oregon NORML, we host a community television show on cable access. We have many people helping us out in Portland doing that. The more you can get your face in the media, the more this is going to erode that societal need to demonize the marijuana user. In closing, I just want to give you one more. Well, let's just give you some Bill O'Reilly.
Let's get out of here. I have some really good weed back at the hotel.
So use that one on the show a lot. And, of course, the old favorite. Bill's not going to speak. That was Bill Clinton. He's not going to talk about it. And then another thing that I always mention on the, Alan calls it the war on some drugs. I have a little bit longer explanation.
Certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic tobacco-free drugs.
So it's a little bit longer acronym, but that's that. And I have cards for the radio show. It's radicalruss.net if you're interested. I'm going to keep this show going and keep the pro-cannabis voice out there as long as I can. I want to thank all of you for having me here for this event. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Russ. Continuing our discussion on how to use media to further our voices, we have Brian and Laura Judy, our webmasters and online activists extraordinaires.
Hi, I'm the Brian part. Laura's coming up. I'm going to go first, and basically for the last year and a half, we've been trying to expand NORML's reach out into using the internet and particularly in social network environments. So I'm going to give some tips on what you can do to leverage NORML's content. If you've anybody been to the website, you know they have a very deep content base, lots of reports and facts and information. We're going to show you how you can take this content and leverage it on your website to expand the amount of content you can offer to your audience. Also on how to network and create networks with the free systems like MySpace, Facebook, things like that. This is basically what we're looking at now. There's other networks out there. You can see the bigger names, the MySpace, the Facebooks. Those are kind of the most prominent as far as the number of people they get in. They bring in to NORML. They may not be the most potent as far as getting people to convert to activism. Some of the other ones may do that more through media and networking. But they definitely bring in lots of numbers. Here's some these will work for in the web, and some will work on MySpace. This is our banner page. For any of you who would like to link to content from the NORML site, there's lots of different ways to do it. There's a button for the audio stash. We have the animation if you're trying to attract younger audience. Sam's Journey is a great way to do it. Some regular banners just to promote NORML and the issue. And this is a popular one here, the State's Guide. If you go to that page, there's many different size buttons you can use to the State Guide and marijuana penalties, which is probably the most popular area on our website. Here's some flash buttons you can use that go to many of the reports and other content. Paul Armentano wrote a lot of these, and there's some other content like POWs, which has a few letters coming in from people in jail. This is an example of some of the code you would use. I won't this is all available, of course, on our website. If you go on the green menu on the left, you'll see Webmasters, and then it'll take you to all of this kind of stuff. It's very easy to use. We'll be launching the Smoke the Vote pages very soon. So you'll be able to click on this and go to a page where people can register to vote. Here's some other buttons where people can put in their zip code, and you can get the code from the links, and it'll take you right to your representative's page, and where they can send a letter. Or the user can send a letter. These are flash players and buttons for the audio stash, for Chris's audio stash that he does daily. Many of you know. There's two different sizes on the left. This is a large size. You can put this in a pop-up window. All the code is available. You just copy and paste the code. It'll embed it in your website. People can, you can also have a smaller one. This one, I think, is still on the stash front page. And this one doesn't actually play the music, but it's an interactive button, so people can browse through the different stash days, and then they can either download an MP3 for that day, or this will open up a new window for the player. For MySpace, there's a lot of different things you can do on MySpace. We've been trying to focus because, as you've probably seen, you can get pretty spread out and things, so it helps to focus. We've been obviously trying to build community through friends and some using groups on MySpace. We post all our press releases to the blog, where people can comment on and subscribe to. A different way people can subscribe to our e-zine. People can share media, which is very great for creating more of a cultural energy around the issue. And I think we all know that marijuana has a great cultural history, and it's something we try to focus on as much as possible to inspire people. And then sending bulletins is kind of similar to just sending a listserv message, but it's an alternative way to do it, a little bit different audience than you might see on the website. than you might get on a website. MySpace tends to be a little younger than the normal web audience. These are graphics where you can get the code and embed it in your MySpace. People can grab the code and put it in comments on your website, or you can put it on your website. This is just an example of some. For instance, the marijuana arrest things, if you link to the one on our site, instead of copying and pasting the code, when the arrest report comes out every year, we'll update this graph as we did 2 weeks ago, and your graph will automatically update. This is something where we've just launched not too long ago. All the NLC attorneys, if you go to the lawyer section, legal help, either through a state page or through the main menu, you'll see each lawyer has a map link now so that they can link to, you can get directions to their office. We hope to do it for chapters also. This is one of the one of the probably best ways we utilized YouTube and MySpace video this year was through Ron Mann's Cannabis Clip Contest. And I think we offered a $1,000 reward, which really helped increase the quality of the videos we got out. We got some really outstanding entries this year, and having them on YouTube and MySpace, just everybody was crisscrossing, linking, and stuff like that, and it can really build a lot of energy, and it's the kind of energy that you don't necessarily have to have your finger on each piece of it. That's the great thing about social networks. You put something out there, and it just kind of spreads, you know, if it speaks to people. And one of the most recent things we've done is we've just opened up an office in Second Life. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, is what some people don't like this term, but it's a 3D game world where people can meet each other and chat and do all kinds of creative things with it. There's lots of potential for Second Life. Right now, the audience isn't as big as MySpace or Facebook or things like that. But what it does offer, I think, is a more potent experience. So I think the people who you are reaching through this will come away with a much stronger impression of what you're doing. And then, and I think maybe the act of creating with the content we provide and other people reacting to that content can provide a stronger relationship with between each other and with NORML. Now, Laura pretty much launched and was the primary person on the Second Life opening party. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and she can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I went into Second Life maybe about a year ago, and I didn't really have a lot of experience with it, but I found it to be very easy to work with. The first slide, go ahead. That's me. My name in Second Life is Leona Lubitsch. You have to pick a name and you build your avatar. And so the first thing that we did, well, we rented a little office space, but we made these posters out of a lot of our ads. And the posters provide two things. One, it's a link to the website, so that takes you back to the NORML website, but it also is something that people can copy and put it into their Second Life little home, whatever they call home in Second Life. The T-shirt was also created as a gear for avatars, and it's free. People can come into our office and buy it for $0 Linden dollars. There is a currency in Second Life called Linden dollars, and you can convert it to USD as well, but we're offering the T-shirt for free, and we have a button too. Okay. This woman came to our opening party, and this was her very first day in Second Life, and you can see she really did great with it. She found out about it from a MySpace bulletin, and so that was a way that kind of cross-pollination works. She was able to get that joint, which is, I guess I would call it shareware. Because somebody gave it to me, and I really don't know who, and it's just gone all, and it smokes really nicely, too. In the background, that's Keith, and he has a little bong in his hand there, and that is a fully smokable bong, and it was a lot of fun to use that. Okay, there's Keith. He now when you're in Second Life and you're talking, it's chat, so your hands look like they're typing. So Keith is answering some questions from the people who came to the party, and he's saying, the things that he says and smoking. Oh, and then we also put a transcript of the Q&A up on the NORML website. So again, we cross-pollinate back so people who weren't at the party can go and see what was discussed during the Second Life opening. That's Chris Goldstein. And he's there with our normal time clock that's always at 4:20. And you can see the Daily Audio Stash banner in the background, and we do have special editions of the Daily Audio Stash in Second Life that you can listen to while you're in the office. This is a very good friend of NORML. His name is Monkey Eagleburger, and he's actually a monkey. Not in real life, but in Second Life he's a monkey. This is the kind of community thing that happened there, because Monkey is the person who created the smokable bong, and he obviously has little programming skills or whatever, and he donated the bong to NORML, and it has a NORML sticker on it, and it is for sale within Second Life, and most of the proceeds go to NORML, and so that was Monkey there. Okay. Just another person who came by to the party, and it's very, there's a lot of personality in the avatars. I mean, you can really, you can make it look like yourself, or you can, be a totally weird character. I mean, we had a warthog that came. We had a lady with wings. I guess she was kind of a fairy, and a lot of people like wings. Oh, this woman is a medical marijuana patient, and she had created her own vaporizer, which she brought to the party. And, so you can create a lot of really cool content. Just Monkey and some other people enjoying the party and having a good time. There's me again. And basically, it was a very rewarding experience for me to, learn how to do all this stuff. And one of the first things that I did was I got involved with some other nonprofits that were there, and I went to some of their meetings, and everyone was so just willing to impart their knowledge and help me, and they put up our posters in their amphitheater to spread the word about our party, and it was a very rewarding experience in Second Life.
We just heard a portion of our Activist Toolbox panel from the NORML 2007 conference in Los Angeles. We heard Radical Russ Belleville there, followed by Brian and Laura Judy, the website administrators for NORML.org from Red Aphid Interactive Media. Links to Radical Russ and to Red Aphid are available on our website today at NORMLAudioStash.com. Stay tuned.
You're listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
Next up today, we have some music found up at podshow.com. We have links to all the artists we play at NORMLAudioStash.com.
I'm not Tupac and I'm not Biggie, not Slim Shady, and no, not 50, not Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, Buster, or a New Jack Hustler, but I still dust ya. I'm not Tupac and I'm not Biggie, not Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, Buster, or a New Jack Hustler, but I still dust ya. J-Dox. 5'9 3/4, a beanie sport, a true underground beat supporter, keeping sorta a low profile shorter, a street reporter keeping all of my speeches in order, breaching the dysfunctional border I enter, building with cats from LA to Loma Linda, founding member of the board of directors, plus I got connections from Cali to Texas. You know I strive for perfection like my EP, CD, easy, distributed freely, at least for the most part. All of my big girls, they want to know when the show starts. But see, where I come from, life is one big low-income conundrum on a constant paper chase. Well, for that and abstract tracks with the fat bass. Now lyric goes to waste when I'm in the place, in your face, when you hear my words interlaced with the beat. Never incomplete when I'm on the street. Only time I halt and screech is if my celly beep. It could be nitrous or release. That's wifey and seed. An emergency with them, well then I leave. If not, then with my rhyming I proceed. Breathing in the secondhand smoke from y'all's weed. I'm not Tupac and I'm not Biggie, not Slim Shady, and no, not 50, not Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, Busta, or a New Jack Hustler, but I still dust ya. I'm not Tupac and I'm not Biggie, not Slim Shady, and no, not 50, not Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, Busta, or a New Jack Hustler, but I still dust ya.
That was some fine music found at podshow.com. We have links to all the artists at normalaudiostash.com.
What's up, y'all? This is Soja, and you are right now listening to Normal's Daily Audio Stash. Big up yourself.
The podcasting technology of Normal is made possible by Red Aphid Interactive Media. More information at redaphid.com.